Thank you.
Finally, we're going to invite all the presenters to join us over there, and we'll have a final sort of plenary session. So that any questions you have that you'd like answered today, hopefully this is the occasion when you'll get those answers. So if I could invite all the presenters to take position on the platform there. And of course, Steph hasn't had a chance to answer any of your questions, but I'm sure she'll be happy to do that now. So, there are one or two people we're waiting for. I think they correct way to check out the end of the card at the beginning of the shore.
All the water results.
Oh, right, well, there is. You think that's what that noise is about, the weather result? So, is there anyone who'd like to start the questions rolling? Everyone here this morning? They're all studying into silence.
I'd like to ask a question. Okay, I'd like to ask a question instead. Having seen all those pictures, how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about the pictures?
Just that whole story you see.
Yes. It's been quite emotional, just telling the story. And it feels a very personal thing to share, you know, in a conference setting. But I sort of prepared myself for that.
I'd say it's very, very good.
Thank you. The thing I thought, I mean, obviously I've got lots of case material, but you can't use photographs from clients and preserve their confidentiality. And so I thought that if I was going to use photographs to tell a story, it had to be mine. You know, so it wasn't that I'd just been completely narcissistic.
Mike, how do you feel?
Well, it would have been nice if she'd have asked my permission.
I think I
But as you notice, I'm sat on all the time.
question for Kate at the end, Kate. Just about the idea, when I worked in psychiatry in the early 90s, one of the things psychiatrists used to say was we don't encourage psychotic clients to look at their inner voices. It's about encapsulating them through medication and keep them in touch with the real world by talking about what we see. And so what I found so interesting, that's completely turned on its head, and it's now about engaging very much with those voices that before were taboo almost to talk about with patients. And it's a very refreshing approach. I'm not sure whether she was Kate or Jack really about this. I don't know what.
No, I completely agree. I mean, in Durham at least, there's a very definite Hearing the Voice network, and the main aim of that network is to try and get people who hear voices to talk about their voices and start expressing what they mean, where they come from, what triggers them and such. And from what I've managed to gather from it, it has a fantastic effect. And I mean, it's interesting to say that about trying to not encourage the voices and getting that right and such. Because the big thing is a lack of insight is one of the characteristic traits of schizophrenia also. Psychiatry tell us. But no, it's definitely fantastic to see just how successful and how great a result we can get from asking such people to talk about what they mean, validating those experiences.
Yeah, but it feels as if it has to be well controlled with very professional, trained psychiatrists and lots of checks and balances, because it would be quite worrying to encourage, I guess, certain aspects of the avatars that might lead a psychotic patient to other ideas and other images.
Of course, I mean, if you think back to what Professor Leff was doing, he was controlling the voice at one point, obviously for therapeutic means. But as I'm sure you know yourself, the voices can be just needlessly destructive. And such, going back to the idea of the shadow, there's parts of people that are just, there's not a great deal of meaning to gather from it, it is just a destructive voice. And I would agree, I mean, in America they're doing a lot of things, focus groups and such. I don't know if you're familiar with Professor Gail Bornstein at all?
No.
She's done a lot of things in America to do with schizophrenia, trying to encourage voice hearers to talk about their voices with other voice hearers and such. Again, that idea of validating what they hear as being real and such. But no, I'd agree, definitely very controlled, very, it can get quite dangerous to validate certain things and such. But it's amazing how quickly we managed to get results.
And hopefully be looking to reduce kind of chemical interventions and medication with that kind of approach in the future, I guess.
Yes, hopefully so. I mean, I'm sure you know yourself, the side effects of such medication is terrible. If you can get past that, fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks, dear. Thank you.
Mine's just that 100 years ago, or when I was there 100 years ago, but a long time ago when I was a client, I gave my face-to-face counsellor a picture of me as a child, and she held that, she held a lot of it during our work, and it's very important. And she gave it back to me, which was right for me at the end of our work. I was just thinking that online, if somebody scans in and sends you a photograph, I'm just wondering if you've got any thoughts about what you do with somebody else's photograph at the end of the therapy.
I asked them whether they would like me to return it to them, and that if I do return it, I won't keep a copy, or whether they would like me to keep it. Yeah, and generally people say they'd like me to keep it.
Right.
And then obviously I don't put it on my computer and go with my records. But it's a part of them and their history that they've shared, isn't it? Just as sometimes as clients write poetry about their early life. I'll do the same. I'll say, would you like it to be returned to you? Would you like me to keep it? And generally they say, I'd really like to keep a copy.
Sorry, I just wanted to follow on from that.
said obviously not on your computer. And I work in the university and we are paperless. And I'm thinking what we always used to say, obviously not on the computer.
Well, because I work using a laptop, and laptops can get lost and stolen, and so I keep my client records on an external hard drive, which then gets, locked away safely. So that I try not to keep anything other than something very current on my laptop. The laptop's password protected and the document's password protected too, but that's a safe story.
I've got a question for Kate and Jack, and I don't even know if you know this. I'm a very visual person. When I saw the avatars, I thought, did they do research did people pick something resembling them, same gender, same skin color, or was there no correlation between that at all?
I don't really know, but it'd be interesting to sort of look at that, I guess. No, because I mean, if you take the second avatar that we saw, the devil-like figure and such, it was nothing to do with culture or gender or whatever. It was just purely a hateful figure and such. So, I mean, there might in some cases be a link between that, but
yeah, and I think one of them was very clear that didn't want to look at the abuser. So my assumption from that, it may well be my assumption, was that yes, the avatar had been created for some sort of similarity with the abuser in the first place. So I guess he was just really clear that that voice was that person.
Can I just ask, Kate, were all the subjects that you presented were male? Were there females in the research stuff?
Yes, the only thing I can remember off the top of my head though were excluded from studies that they either dropped out early or there was issues with medication and results and such.
I just thought it was interesting that they were all male that you presented.
Yeah, I have got that in my notes, the gender split.
It was quite a small sample that he did. I mean, he doesn't tend to do a much bigger sample as such, but it might be interesting to see the difference and such. Yes.
Hello. This is a question for Steph, actually. Is the moving image something that you use as well? Do people give you videos, and is that something that...
I haven't done, but I mean, it's an interesting notion, isn't it, that people will. Sometimes clients have sent me links to a website that they've done. I had a client who was working with her childhood abuse, and she had a website featuring images from The Wizard of Oz that she was fascinated by. And as you clicked on each of the characters, there was one of her poems behind it that came up, and she actually couldn't speak them. But she asked if I would look at her website. So that's the nearest I've got really. No, there's no reason why video couldn't feature, is there?
Hi, that's kind of a question for all of you really. I was fascinated to see OCTIA on Facebook, internal question of Facebook, because I certainly remember you, Kate, a year or two ago saying that you wouldn't go anywhere on Facebook as far as therapy was concerned. So I don't know if there's been a shift of policy or if you've got mixed feelings across different members of the panel, how you're using Facebook these days.
I'm kind of fascinated with Facebook at the moment, purely because of the shifts in the privacy policies and how they treat our data. And being very, very aware that we are the product, and that's the way of a lot of platforms now. And yes, it doesn't sit very comfortably with me. I was part of the Facebook Rant Guide, which I still can't remember what it stands for, but anyway, it was a document which BACP was also a part of, which Amanda mentioned this morning. I also consulted on that, and that was very much about online safety and online well-being. Facebook, I think, apart from the fact that we're all the products sort of thing, I think they do try to keep up with changes in possible dangers to people posting about their suicide and providing a suicide button and things like that. But I still think that it's a public forum which has a huge ability to be very damaging. Having said that, I love it. I have Facebook open all day, every day. It's how I keep up with my sisters. Now I live in Scotland and they're the other end of the country. And I think, and I'm a member of a lot of Facebook pages about counselling and psychotherapy, and I think that I've written an ethical framework for the use of social media, which obviously includes Facebook. We published that in Tilt a few issues back. And I think that, again, with the other technologies, having that ethical background and responsibility for us as professionals, I think all these things can be used. They're just, you have to think it all through. Foursquare will identify where the client is, and if it comes up on Foursquare, even via Twitter, that they have just entered the nearest sex clinic or something, that's all being made public. Suicide threats on Facebook, clients following you on Twitter. The 6 degrees of separation is now gone. It's now 4.7 degrees of separation. So if you're on LinkedIn, it's only 4.7 steps to your client being identified by someone else. Huge breaches of confidentiality. Pinterest, I came up with this when I was presenting it on Tuesday to the NHS. I was trying to think of therapeutic uses for Pinterest, which, as Mika and I were discussing earlier, great for mood boards, vision boards. It can be a great tool for that. It's also a great tool for posting triggers for self-harming. We have to think these things through. It's all about being responsible.
I think the OCTIA on Facebook was just an attempt to get the message out there, and it felt like an appropriate use of Facebook to get the conference known.
Yes. I think the original issues were A, to do with privacy in terms of our personal lives, and B, were we thinking about using Facebook to try and attract clients? So, I don't know, I was just surprised to see it. Like OCTIA, if you want the free bit, the bond.
I think increasingly people say, I will use social media for professional uses, I won't touch it personally. Or I use it only personally, I wouldn't use it professionally. I think there's quite a split amongst users.
Yeah, I think a lot of my colleagues have their personal Facebook page, and they also have their business page. And they're very particular about what they post, so I'm a bit more flexible than that. Mostly because I know my because it's quite a small field. We all sort of know each other. And so I'm a bit more flexible with that. But yes, I think increasingly Facebook will be for professional uses, not personal. There'll be another platform along in a minute.
Is this a stage where everyone feels well satiated and about ready to fall off to sleep now? Are there any more questions before we draw this year's conference to a close? Do you have that?
So we were just talking about the fact that it's such a shame that there wasn't an online presence, an ability to connect here online, and that there were a few of us that seemed to know quite a few other people that actually did want to come in online. I'm wondering if the ability to do that was actually kind of withdrawn a bit prematurely. Why that suddenly disappeared?
It was a business decision taken by John, who supplies the online service and the streaming, at a point where there weren't sufficient numbers signed up to allow that to happen.
I think it would have been good to have a sort of a warning period for people, because I guess if you can sign on online, you might just leave it to the last minute.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, and we'll certainly bear that in mind. I think had we had more warning and more time to do it, we might have been able to organise a different platform, another way of doing it. But as it was, we were faced with quite a sudden decision that we were actually unable to do anything about at the time. So, sadly, that facility had to be withdrawn, and I think everybody's missed that. Steve hasn't known what to do with his hands, tapping away. Kate's had to listen to everything. Laptop open. We'll try and sort it the next time.
Mika, of course, has had to stand on duty.
Yeah.
Yes, putting together the online web streamed part of it is incredibly expensive. And therefore you need a large number of people signing up to it. And I know that for a number of years, John has been prepared to do it with making a loss in hopes that it would gather momentum. And when it didn't seem to gather momentum, he said, look, I just can't do it again. And not at least break even. You know, to bring the team down from Scotland, to bring all the equipment down, is an expensive undertaking.
Is there not somebody down here, like in Bristol, that could do the same job? Yeah, and I guess the question is there not somebody here in Bristol that could do the same job?
We will investigate that.
Yeah.
We will look at different avenues. There wasn't sufficient time to do that this year, sadly.
Steph, does that mean it sounds like we might hold it here next year? Somebody's already asked me that.
Yeah, we haven't made a decision on that one yet. I know Jackie would say yes, it's a good venue. There's also the thought that it could be somewhere more central in the country. But who knows? Maybe you could let your thoughts be known on your evaluation sheet.
It has proved a good venue for attracting people to it, and it would be nice to be able to move it, but if in moving it we lose a number of delegates so that we don't cover cost, that would be very difficult. When we were in Manchester, we did not cover costs.
I put it on the evaluation. I think this is what was the point that was made to me was that if you keep it in the same venue, people become familiar with getting to the venue. It's not the easiest place to get to because it's not particularly well signposted. But you know, that familiarity probably is a great encouragement to people.
Thanks, Jim.
Perhaps giving sat-nav directions to the local car park might be helpful too. I think that caused a few problems today.
It's on the Watershed's website, the parking.
Yes, it is.
Don't tend to think of those things, dear, until you're on web.
I guess
Here yesterday had no problem. It was only this morning when they tried to bring their cars and they different. So, what I'd like to do now is to draw OCTIA's fourth conference to a close by thanking again our presenters. You've made our day, you've given us lots to think about, lots of nice thoughts to take away and to savour at our leisure. I'd like to thank Mika for, I don't know how successful you've done this. She did volunteer, and I think that's a very courageous thing to do. She didn't know anything about video, she has hired it and learned the skill in the time. So I think, you know, that's excellent. It just shows how resourceful both the presenters and Mika. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming and supporting us, because without your support, there wouldn't be an OCTIA conference each year. We do value it, we do value seeing you, we do like the camaraderie that we we've fostered as well. So it's now to say safe journey everyone, and hopefully meet you all again next year. Thank you.